Let's quack-a-lackin'. I thought we would slow things down a little bit this week and take a little bit of a walking tour of Phillips Avenue. It's one of the oldest and most historic streets here in Sioux Falls. There's some beautiful old buildings to look at. They just updated the sculpture walk for 2026, so there's new sculptures to look at, and there's a little bit of history to talk about along the way. So being that we're going to go on Phillips Avenue, the most logical place to start was right around the corner from Phillips Avenue, and that will make sense in just a moment. This cute little building across the street is the Auburn-Nash building. It was built in 1925, completed in 1926, and it was originally an automotive dealership for Auburn vehicles and Nash vehicles. In those days, when you bought a car, you didn't go to a large parking lot with hundreds of cars to test drive. You went to a showroom with a few select vehicles and you would select the one you wanted and place an order. So that's what this building was originally. It became an Egge transmission repair shop throughout the 1950s. Today, it exists as Josiah's Coffeehouse, Cafe, and Bakery. And there's something inside that really kicks off today's video, and I need to show it to you, but they are about to close in half an hour, so we have to get in there quick. Now that I've picked up a refreshing hibiscus tea, the thing I really wanted to show you in here is this portrait above the fireplace. This gentleman is Dr. Josiah Phillips. He was one of the founding members of Sioux Falls and very instrumental in the development of the entire downtown area as we know it today. So Dr. Josiah Phillips originally came to this area in 1857, stayed until 1858. He was working on an assignment with the Dakota Land Company, who had the foresight to see that settlement in this area was going to be booming in the coming decades. So they set up this excursion to map the area and look for plots of land that they wanted to own. While on this excursion, Dr. Phillips picked up a plot for himself of 160 acres. He filed a homestead claim and built a small shack of a homestead on that property. And that 160 acres happens to be the very land that makes up the downtown area today. So this is Phillips Avenue today. This particular building is the historic Old Courthouse Museum. We may go look at that another day. In a few of my videos on the channel, I have mentioned Fort Dakota and how at one time it was the only thing in this area. And if you've wondered where Fort Dakota would have been situated in relation to the Sioux Falls of today, this is it. Phillips Avenue would have been a very primitive wagon trail that ran along the perimeter of Fort Dakota. So after that assignment ended in 1858 and Dr. Phillips had his 160 acres of land in his homestead, he moved in and started setting things up. But at that time, the area was largely unsettled. There weren't very many settlers, and there was a war breaking out with the local Sioux indigenous population. They didn't want the settlers on their land. And so in 1862, the entire settlement of Sioux Falls got evacuated by the military. Everyone was transported to Yankton, and many of these people, fearing the war that was breaking out in the area, left Yankton and went back to where they originally came from. Dr. Phillips took a different path. Give you just a quick shot of the historic State Theater. We'll talk about that a little more when we come down the other side of Phillips Avenue. So, following the evacuation of the residents of Sioux Falls in 1862, Dr. Phillips joined the Union Army. The Civil War was in full swing at this time, and he was medically trained, and he saw this as an opportunity to save lives. And you can only imagine the horrors that this man must have witnessed trying to save lives on the battlefield and probably losing more than he saved. After the Civil War ended in 1865, he found himself in Houston, Texas, where he met a young lady named Hattie, who was a school teacher at an African American school, which you can imagine in the 1860s was very forward thinking. She was also a philanthropist in the area and involved in many charitable causes. And she was generally just a very compassionate person. And that's what Dr. Phillips fell in love with. Interesting sculpture. It says, "Still Grounded" by Walt Hildebrand. Not sure if it's a slinky or a caterpillar. A slinkapillar, how about that? Let's go. So Josiah and Hattie were married in 1867. The homestead in the Dakota Territory was a long forgotten memory at this point. The things were still uncertain due to the war with the Sioux, and a lot of people never returned to the area. But in 1870, all of that changed. This little fella here says he is the ABU Autonomous Burrowing Unit by sculptor Kirk Cease. Kind of freaky if you ask me. So what changed in 1870 was that Dr. Phillips received notice that Fort Dakota, which was sitting on his property, was going to be put up for sale, or at least the buildings were going to be put up for sale. And so Dr. Phillips returned to the area at that time to reclaim what was rightfully his property. And it was kind of good fortune that the fort was built on his land, because no one was willing to bid against him in the auction, because it just wouldn't be a sound real estate investment to buy property that was sitting on someone else's land. So not only was Dr. Phillips able to acquire these buildings very cheaply because no one was willing to bid against him, but also the state of the buildings were just very dilapidated. They had been described as being vermin infested, and I'll elaborate on that in just a moment. Take another quick little look through the noise of the motorcycle. This one is called Exquisite Trio by Alicia Jones. So anyway, once word got out that the buildings of the fort were going to be put up for sale, Dr. Phillips felt the need to come back and reclaim his property. And the good thing about it was, because the buildings of the fort were situated on his property, no one else was willing to bid on them, because it made no sense to buy buildings on real estate that someone else owns. Not only that, but he got them very cheaply because they were described as vermin infested. And sure, this meant that there were rats in the buildings, but what they were really talking about was that the buildings were populated by squatters. These were settlers who had come into the area. Their homestead claims had not been processed, and they really had nowhere to go. So they took up residence in the empty buildings of the fort while they waited on their paperwork to process. Now, how would you handle this situation? As I said, Dr. Phillips was a man of compassion, and he understood that these people had nowhere to go. And so he told them that they were more than welcome to stay in the buildings as long as necessary while they waited on their land claims to be processed. They would have a place to live as long as they needed, but just be aware that these buildings will not always exist. And the reason he told them this was because he had kicked into visionary mode. He saw that these settlers, ooh, that background music is so loud. Let's just get past it, the challenges. Anyway, he saw that these settlers were going to be the first of many to come into the area, the first of many. And he knew that all of these people that were coming in were going to be just like the ones that were there now. They were going to need a place to live. And he saw that Sioux Falls was going to be a rapidly growing community, and he had the land that bordered the falls. Understand that in the late 19th century, electricity, hydroelectric power was just coming into being, and the use of water was essential to hydroelectric power, and he saw that the waterfalls were going to be important. He knew that a community was going to spring up around these falls, and he had the land bordering it. So while he allowed these people to stay on his property as long as they needed to, he went to work surveying the land, mapping out streets, roadways. He owned at that time everything between what today is 6th and 9th Street in one way, and everything from Minnesota to Phillips Avenue the other way. So he had a huge tract of land. He laid out all the streets that we still drive today. And he also had the foresight to put together alleyways. He wanted the street fronts to be a center of commerce and a place that people could enjoy, and any deliveries and things like that should always be done in the rear of the building. So he designed the entire footprint of downtown Sioux Falls that we still use today. Check this out. This one gets my vote every time. Old school Nintendo game controller. This one says that it is, loud truck, says it is control issues by Clark Martinek from Mitchell, South Dakota. Let's go, Clark. This is awesome. Let's take one quick look at this one before we move on. This is Phoenix by Sergei Mozanevsky from, I cannot pronounce the town, but it is in British Columbia, Canada. People submit artwork from all over the world to the sculpture walk. I wanted to show you this building very quickly. This is a local landmark. It is the Phillips Avenue Diner. I'm not sure if they're still open this time of day. A lot of these places close about 3:30, and we're just past 3:30 now. But this place is a landmark, and if you think it looks like it's from the 50s or 60s on the outside, you've really got to see the inside. I don't think the thing has ever been updated since it was brand new, and in a lot of places that would make it look like a trashy environment. But at the Phillips Avenue Diner, it just works. It makes you feel like you've transcended time. Now, directly across the street from the Phillips Avenue Diner is the Bench Pay building. This building was constructed in 1887. It is the oldest remaining building from the original downtown, and it is considered to be one of the best preserved examples of what is known as commercial block style architecture. Today it is home to a candle shop and a real estate development company. I'm unsure of what was originally at that location. Before we cross the street and take a look at the Bench Pay building, I just wanted to see if anyone knows who this guy is. I am always curious. There has to be someone out there who is very familiar with mythology and could possibly tell me who this guy is and why is he pouring out the wine. Anyway, let's continue on. We're going to cross the street and go back up the other side of this section of Phillips Avenue. I read a bronze plaque on the wall that said that this building was originally a land finance company for people who were looking to come into the area and populate. Today it's a candle shop. Check it out, and there's a bar at the other end. The candle shop has workshops. Maybe we'll come down one day and do this workshop and make our own candle. Looks like a lot of very touristy souvenir type stuff more than anything though, and that's not what I'm into, so let's just continue on. So as they began to develop the downtown area, Josiah and Hattie originally lived in the officers' quarters of the fort, but they quickly built their first home at the intersection of 11th and Phillips, just a couple of blocks away. I would love to show it to you, but I'm afraid that building no longer exists. It was demolished in 1910 to build a different building, which today serves as luxury apartments in a historic building. That building itself is now 116 years old, so it's become a piece of history. It's just unfortunate that it replaced an earlier piece of history. This one says, "In Rock We Rust" by Andrew Putis of Plymouth, Minnesota. Anyone who was a child of the 80s understands this problem, and thankfully you understand that all it takes to fix it is something as simple as a pencil. Let's go. We've got a rusty cassette on this side, and on the opposite intersection and corner over there was where the Nintendo game controller was. This is the retro strip. Let's go. This one is called Mountain Sentinel by Alicia Jones of Santa Fe, New Mexico. I believe this is the second sculpture we've seen from her. That seems a little unfair to have multiple entries, but I really like it. The community eventually lost Dr. Phillips on June 12th, 1882. He was only 47 years old. He became sick 2 days earlier on June 10th, and June 12th he was gone. And it was an incredible shock to both his family and the community just at large. He was a very loved and respected man here. Both him and his wife Hattie were. Hattie later on built a 3-story mansion in a different part of town as a memorial to her husband. But neither of those homes exist today. They've both been lost to time. So this is the Boyce Greeley building on the corner of 11th and Phillips. This location was where the original Phillips home was situated, but as I said, it was demolished in 1910 to build this structure, which in its own right is now a historic property. These are all luxury, high-end apartments in this building. There's some retail shops on the first floor, but if you want the upscale downtown living experience, the Greeley building is where you want to be. It was just Memorial Day the other day, so I wanted to give you a quick look at this fine-looking young gentleman. This is a sculpture of Michael Fitzmaurice, who was a winner of the Congressional Medal of Honor. This sculpture was done by Darwin Wolf, who has provided a number of sculptures to this city. I don't believe this one is part of the sculpture walk. This is a permanent fixture here in town, so you'll be able to see this anytime you choose. So right next to the statue of Mr. Fitzmaurice is the historic State Theater that we looked at briefly from the other side of the street. This building was constructed in 1926, and for decades it was a centerpiece of the community. It was the movie theater in town. It's where you came if you wanted to see a show. It closed for about 25 years, starting in the 1990s, due to just the economic downturns of the economy at the time. But in 2020, it underwent a multi-million-dollar renovation to breathe new life into it. I have never yet been. If I do go, I'll try to make a video and bring you guys along with me. But what I'm told is that it maintains all of the original architectural aesthetics on the inside, combined with more modern amenities such as leather recliners with side tables. Sounds like a really comfortable place to see a movie. They don't show current movies. They show a combination of independent films and classic movies. For example, you could have came in February and watched Groundhog's Day with Bill Murray. Roughly around that same time, they were showing Gone with the Wind. Or if you like to support independent artists, this is definitely a place that you want to come check out. So I think that about does it for today's video. Little walk and talk along historic Phillips Avenue. I'm honestly not sure how I feel about the video. There's a lot of edits I had to do because of traffic or various other reasons, and I feel like I had lost my train of thought. And although I have not yet edited this video, I feel like it's going to come out a little bit choppier than normal. And I don't want that. I want things to be smoothing out, not getting choppier. But it is what it is. We got out, even though it was 88 degrees today. I went out for 6 weeks in a row to make a video. I'm incredibly happy about that. I did get to look at some historic buildings. I actually went inside a place for the first time. I do need to get better about that and improve on that, but at least I went inside somewhere for the first time today, and that was really cool. Next week, we're going to carry it over. There is a property somewhere else in town that was part of an estate owned by Hattie Phillips after Josiah had passed away. Today it is home to the Japanese gardens, but there is something that I discovered in the Japanese gardens that was really what sparked my initial interest in the history of this area. And I want to share that with you, but other than that, the Japanese gardens are a nice place to spend the day, so why not go? I'll see you for that one next Wednesday at 1. Like I said, I feel like today's video is probably a little bit choppier than I want. I feel like I need to make up for it. So I'm going to do a bonus video, probably not for this weekend, but for next weekend, we will go do a tour of one of the more historic areas in town, look at some homes, probably see some places for sale or rent while we're there. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I apologize for how this video turned out, but at least you saw a glimpse of it, right? I'll see you guys next Wednesday at 1 at the Japanese Garden. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. Quackers out.